Tyler from Aspire Sports. Today's video, I'm going to give you 5 guys who I believe have massive upside heading into the 2021 fantasy football season. Now, these aren't going to be guys like your DeAndre Swift. We know that he has big potential there. These are going to be guys that are currently being drafted in the 7th or later in those rounds. So we're looking for those players, your Justin Jefferson, your Antonio Gibson, Alvin Kamara. Those are the guys that we're looking for. Your Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, all right? We're looking for those kind of guys. So with that being said, let's get into the first. The first player that I want to talk about is going to be Jalen Hurts. And I know in a previous video, I said that I'll probably be the last person to draft a quarterback in like your one quarterback leagues, your redraft leagues. But the only player that I would want to draft is Jalen Hurts. He's the only quarterback that I would want to draft early on. The other guys are going to go way too early, like your Dak, your Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts currently is going as quarterback number 11 in your redraft leagues. I think that is phenomenal. This is a guy that truly I do believe can be a top 5 quarterback next season. Do I believe he's the future of Philadelphia? Absolutely not. But in the 3 games that he played in full last year from start to finish, in that span, he was quarterback number 7, and he had the most rushing attempts at the quarterback position. I believe he could lead all quarterbacks in rushing attempts this upcoming season if he plays the full season. The problem is he was not very accurate last year, but you also were playing with Travis Fulgham as your number 1 wide receiver. This year they got Devontae Smith. You have Jalen Reagor, who was quite banged up last year, who's going to be healthy heading into the season. You have your 2 tight ends. I do believe that this offense can be a lot better than what it was last year. Your offensive line is coming back. They are missing a bunch of starters. So there's some potential here, but I don't believe he's the starting quarterback for this franchise in the future. But for fantasy football, I do believe he can be a very good fantasy quarterback for you. So the first player with massive potential, Jalen Hurts. The second player that I want to talk about, Jerry Jeudy. And you may not be as high on Jerry Jeudy as other people like myself because you have Cam Sutton coming back and you have very questionable quarterback play from Drew Lock. Teddy Bridgewater, we know what Teddy Bridgewater is. So the quarterback play isn't that great. And also last year, you have Jerry Jeudy lead the league in drop percentage, which obviously isn't good. But let's talk about some players who have been right there or worse than his drop percentage last year, okay? Some of these players include Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, Randy Moss, Steve Smith, Deshaun Jackson. All those guys have had worse drop percentage than he had or right around it. Randy Moss had a worse drop percentage than Jerry Jeudy did one year. So it's not to say that there's not hope. There is hope for Jerry Jeudy. I do believe that he can be better. I don't think that he's a person that's going to have this. He had a case of the drops last year. It happens with wide receivers. One thing, though, that was he did better than a lot of other players in the NFL last year as a rookie was create separation on man routes. He is extremely gifted, so technical when it comes to a route runner. And if you watched one game that I watched, and it was against a pretty bad defense in Atlanta, but it was later in the season, so they weren't as bad. But he did whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. But you have a quarterback like Drew Lock who couldn't always get him the ball when he needed to get him the ball. So there is hope here. And Matt Harmon did a piece. He does reception perception, if you don't know what that is. One of the best pieces of information in fantasy football when it comes to the wide receiver position. So shout out to Matt Harmon. He was in the 84th percentile when it was against man coverage and creating separation. So a phenomenal route runner. And this is what you want. I want a young, talented wide receiver that has potential to be great, which he has potential to be great. The quarterback situation, though, needs to get resolved. And if one player, Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, if one of these guys can do something this upcoming season, this offense can be very potent. They have playmakers all over the board. I believe in Jerry Jeudy's talent. It's just, come on. Give him a quarterback that can throw him the ball. So second player, Jerry Jeudy. The third player that I'm going to talk about. Third player, Mikal Gallup. And Mikal Gallup, his ceiling is capped by CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. It is capped. But hear me out. Here's why he still has big potential for this upcoming season. First, let's talk about his average draft position, where he's currently being drafted. in best ball leagues, like there's a big difference between best ball and your redraft. In best ball, he's currently being drafted as wide receiver number 38. But in your redraft leagues, like over on Yahoo, ESPN, all of that, he's currently being drafted as wide receiver number 49. So there's a massive gap there. Like, of course, if he's being drafted as wide receiver number 38, I don't like him as much as if he's being drafted as wide receiver number 49. That's a big difference. Those are a lot of rounds between those two. So it depends on where he's going when we get into the heart of the draft season. But still, I do think that there's a lot of potential here for Mikal Gallup. And here's why. Over the past 2 seasons, in each of the past 2 seasons, he's gone over 100 targets. And that's last year with CeeDee Lamb, with Amari Cooper, and missing Dak for majority of the season. This offense doesn't flow through a lot of different options. It's very funneled. Okay, so you're going to have 3 wide receivers who can see over 100 targets this upcoming season for an offense that can easily lead the league in passing attempts this upcoming season. This can be one of the highest volume, if not the highest volume passing offense in the NFL this upcoming season. So I believe that there is massive potential here for him, and especially if you have CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper miss time. He slides in there. A lot of people don't give him credit for his route running ability. He's a very good route runner. He's also one of the better 50-50 ball wide receivers in the NFL. Okay, so there's a lot of potential here for Mikal Gallup, who is also, because everybody loves to talk about this, who is also on a contract year. He's on a contract year this upcoming season. So there's a lot of potential here for Mikal Gallup. And even if one of those guys don't get hurt, I still think that there's a lot of potential. And it absolutely, like wide receiver number 49, where he's being drafted in your redrafts, absolutely crushes that 100%. I believe that Dallas can have 3 top 30 wide receivers easily this upcoming season. So Mikal Gallup, the 3rd player. The 4th player that I want to talk about, and it's kind of this group of guys here. So it's Michael Carter, Trey Sermon, and James Conner. And the reason why I'm bunching them all together is because in terms of ADP, like they're all right next to each other. But on Underdog, you have James Conner last. I believe his ADP is like 112 right now. You have Michael Carter second to last. His ADP is 95. And then Trey Sermon is like 84, 86, somewhere in that range. But then on redraft, like your regular ESPN, Yahoo, those ones, it goes Michael Carter's the first one, followed by James Conner, and then Trey Sermon. So it depends on who is going last, is really who I like more. But the guy that I think has the most potential, it is honestly Michael Carter. Now, everybody, I'm sure, looks at the Jets and say they suck. And they probably are going to suck this upcoming season. But I do think that there's some hope. They have Elijah Vera Tucker on this offensive line. I do think that they signed a couple people. I think this offensive line is going to be better, definitely better than what it was last season. So you have that going for Michael Carter. But Michael Carter also last year was top 5 in basically all of your important rushing categories. So in terms of elusive rating, in terms of yards per carry, your yards after contact, breakaway percentage, like he was top 5 in all of your big categories. And then also was very, very good as a wide receiver, as a running back out of the backfield in terms of catching the football. He was very good. Where you have a guy like James Conner and Trey Sermon, who 2 guys that I really like. Trey Sermon really didn't catch a whole lot of balls in college. There's not a whole lot of production there. And also with James Conner, he has Chase Edmonds, who's going to take that role from him. So there's not a whole lot of potential in that category, but he's going to see plenty of red zone work where he needs to capitalize to really hit his mark. Where Michael Carter has a chance to go into this situation and be the starting back on a team that shouldn't be very good, but a team that's also going to throw the ball, and he should see plenty of receiving work on this offense because he's the best wide receiver, or not best wide receiver, best receiver out of the backfield, a guy that they invested draft capital into on this offense. So he also opened camp as the starter. So that's very important news as well. So Michael Carter, I believe, has the highest upside out of all of those guys. James Conner probably has like the safest floor. His role, I believe, is very defined. He's going to take that Kenyon Drake role. But Michael Carter, I believe, has the chance to see the biggest ceiling due to his receiving upside in this offense. So Michael Carter, number 4. The 5th player that I'm going to talk about is going to be Mikal Hardman, who isn't really drawing a whole lot of buzz. Like there's some people talking about him, but I believe as we get closer to camp, he's going to draw more buzz. But currently is being drafted as like wide receiver number 55 right now on your redraft leagues. But he's also like there's a big difference between underdog and then your redrafts, where on underdog he's currently being drafted as the 93rd player overall, where in redrafts he's being drafted as 145th. All right, so there's a big difference between those two numbers. And obviously, if he's going as wide receiver number 55, which he is in your redrafts, then that's beautiful. I would love to have Mikal Hardman there. So we'll have to, another player that we just got to see what happens as we progress through the preseason, as we progress through training camp. But somebody who last year was being drafted in the 8th round that did not live up to expectations, was very, very disappointing. But he also had Sammy Watkins as the number 2 wide receiver. Sammy Watkins is no longer there. He's currently projected to be the number 2 wide receiver in camp. So we have to see if that's actually going to happen, if he ends up being the wide receiver to start the season, the wide receiver number 2. And if he does, this is the league's best offense with the league's best quarterback, the league's best tight end, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Why wouldn't you want the second guy on this offense? I would absolutely. And if he's being drafted, I'd imagine he's definitely going to move up as we get closer to draft season. But if he's still in like the 40 range, absolutely, I would love to take Mikal Hardman there, because I do think there's massive potential here for him as well. For somebody that ran a low 4.3 40 coming out of college, like this is a guy that can absolutely fly. He's like a Tyreek Hill. One of the best deep ball passers in the NFL. Like, draft him, right? Especially if it's in the 40 range, 100% draft him, because he's oozing of potential. Last year put a bad taste in people's mouth, but players can change, all right? Mikal Hardman is the last person. Well, actually, I'm going to give you a bonus, all right? One last person that I want to talk about. One last person. This is going to be a quarterback, and that's going to be Cam Newton. Cam Newton right now is being drafted, I believe, as quarterback. Let me see, quarterback number 30 or something, like going incredibly late. Last season, before he had COVID and missed, I believe, 2 weeks, he was quarterback number 7 in that span. So the first, I don't know if it was like the first 4 games, first 3 games, whatever it was quarterback number 7 in that span. And that was on a terrible offense. Okay, this offense has done nothing but get better. I know that they drafted Mac Jones, but Cam Newton, I believe, is going to be the starting quarterback for this team heading into next season, and could possibly be the starting quarterback for the whole season. Why rush Mac Jones if he's not 100% ready when you have a previous MVP candidate? Well, he won the MVP in Cam Newton. He's not the player he used to be, but he still last year showed flashes of his old self. Now he has Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry. You have Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar. This team has gotten a lot better offensively than where they were last year. So I believe Cam Newton can easily be a top 10 quarterback next season, or at least a quarterback number 1, finish inside the top 12 if he plays the whole season. So Cam Newton is completely like free. He's free right now in your redrafts. He's free basically over on Underdog, your best ball drafts. So Cam Newton is the last person I'm going to talk about. So thank you for watching. If you enjoy this content, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Thanks, and have a great day.